This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and cryptocurrency space. Hey folks, it is clear that DeFi is continuing to drive innovation and growth in the crypto space. The Crypto Conversation sponsor BitGet has dived deep into DeFi with the recent evolution of the BitGet wallet, a self-custody multi-chain DeFi wallet. You can think of the BitGet wallet as the integration of some of the best parts of decentralized finance, or DeFi, with the BitGet exchange, centralized finance, or CeFi structure. And it's more than just secure storage. One of the most important aspects of the Web3 BitGet wallet is BitGet Swap, which supports tokens from more than 90 different blockchains and offers cross-chain compatibility across 17 different chains. BitGet Swap aggregates liquidity across 100 DEXs and leverages intelligent routing mechanisms to provide users with the best trading prices across different protocols. So try the BitGet wallet. Download the app today. I've put a link in the show notes, or just go to web3.bitget.com. All right. Well, thank you to BitGet. And now it is on with the show. My guest today is Jonathan Bertrand. Jonathan is the CEO at Decentralizing Technologies, a crypto mining company empowering everyone from pleb miners through to industry giants. I think they're providing a bridge to Bitcoin mining in general. Fantastic to see. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Thank you for having me. Yes, Decentral is really a company that's here for the retail as much as for the big major public companies. Yes.
Awesome. Look, just before we get into the wonderful world of crypto mining, Jonathan, it'd be fantastic if you could please just give a little bit of introduction to yourself, really. Just love to hear some of your personal and professional story, and I suppose the lead up to getting involved with crypto mining.
Of course, yeah. So it started quite early for me now that we're in 2023 and getting to 2024. So I started in Bitcoin really about 2014. We launched Decentral in 2016. So the exact date it's founded is on 6 October 2016. So back then I started really as a normal retail customer, and that's why it's part of our mission also to stay true to our roots. So I started with just one Antminer S9 back then. It was one of the first batches that they made. Just that single ASIC miner that I started to tinker with and plugged into my microwave oven socket back in my four and a half apartment. So I realized quickly all the struggles that would come with Bitcoin mining. So I understood quite quickly that I couldn't mine at home with that kind of noise. At least that's what I thought, because nowadays we do have some solutions for that, and we'll touch on that a bit later on. But yes, back at that time where there was no really customization of mining rigs and stuff like that, we were all learning all together, but also all a bit in our own silos, because there weren't a lot of organization within the industry. So it's really a bit every man for himself back then. And so you can understand through the name Decentral that our focus really was about decentralizing mining. If we go back to 2016 again, back then mining in China was really a big thing, major thing, and it was mostly, from what we estimate, it was mostly happening there. So when we realized that here in Quebec, I'm in Montreal, I'm based in Montreal. So when we realized in Quebec that there was this massive opportunity, for based on the cost, obviously, of the electricity, and also the fact that it's renewable. And so, and obviously also the very long winters we have is also a major advantage in that case, because we get free cooling essentially. So all that combined, we quickly added the maths quickly added up. And so we started first business again, really with our own means, credit card debts essentially and stuff like that. Not necessarily something a financial advisor would recommend. But we started small, and we all up to today, I think we've stayed true to our roots, and we've always, scaled by our own means. So it started with that one ASIC in my microwave socket to quickly become a first little facility that was modular. So we could start with 20 miners in there, and then we scaled to 40, and then 60, and then 80. But by the time we get to 80, we're maybe, I'd say, mid 2017, the craze is going on. There's a massive demand for mining hosting because there's all those, major media outlets that are starting to talk about Bitcoin and talk about Bitcoin mining. And we got selected for an interview with the CBC, which is a major broadcaster here in Canada. And so and it's my first business, so I didn't have no business equity, I think is the right word. So really, I was just learning on all that happening at the same time. And so we had so much demand and we couldn't absolutely not handle it at all. So that's all wasted opportunities for us. But it's been a big learning curve though for us. And so from there, we started to get really serious and make really serious offers, talk with serious people and try to get some major projects going on. But by the time we got ready, Hydro-Québec came with the moratorium, which essentially cut our legs in half and essentially almost killed Decentral in 2018. By the same time, the market was essentially crashing, following pretty much each cycles. And so obviously it got very, very hard for us. But we managed to keep our head above the troubled waters. And by 2019, we managed to find another struggling company that had a grandfather clause with Hydro-Québec. So we managed to buy that company and use that grandfather clause to get the connection for our own mining facility, which we now operate. And so it allowed us to really scale up our hosting offers. And from there, obviously, everything that follows and all the problems and the issues we know, we started to develop solutions for. So for instance, in 2020, we started our own ASIC repair center. Now we're also a major sourcer of hardware. And today, to make a small loop back on the S9 story I was telling at the beginning, the S9s or S17s, T17s, all those miners, we now do as a personal mission to also repurpose them, because we always hear those narratives, where all that mining hardware is going to waste or stuff like that. And also, I'm very capitalist. So when I look at some stuff going to waste, I think to myself, there must be a way to capture value there. So we saw that project from CryptoCloaks in 2022, essentially doing a space heater design, a 3D printed box for the S9s. We were already, pushing the S9s as heating solutions to different companies, but it wasn't like sexy to say. So really that case that CryptoCloaks design really appealed to me. So I quickly reached out to him to sponsor a next design, which is the design we're pushing a lot this year, and it's been really successful. All the 17 series essentially being turned to quiet, silent Bitcoin mining meters, and that's the same for Antminer S9, and even Antminer L3 Plus can be converted into Litecoin mining meters in that case.
Right. Got it. Thank you so much, Jonathan. So it'd be great if you could explain maybe like the different services that Decentral offers. So understand on the one hand, you're effectively a retail and service repair center for selling and maintaining and repairing physical miners, but you also have crypto mining hosting solutions. So maybe just talk through those two kind of different sides of the business and how big they are and relative to each other, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned, we really started with the hosting, and repairs came as an answer to some issues we were living ourselves, because we had our own mining too. That you start to piling those bad boards, and you have your customers that also have that issue, and so started to ask to myself, well, obviously this can be repaired, and there must be a way. Like, it cannot be just to ship it back to China and wait magically for it to be repaired. There is the way to fix it. And again, back at that time, now there's more materials to make those kinds of repairs yourself, and the documentation is much stronger now. But back then, the only way was to essentially go on Chinese forums, Russian forums. I would go there, translate everything, gather as much information as I can, essentially build a team while and we have to remember also 2020 was the moment where there was that supposed China mining ban, where a lot
Yes.
of the hash rate came down. So obviously the profitability for mining went skyrocket. So a lot of people wanted to fix anything, even S9s we fixed at that time. So like we just essentially put that offer and it became so crazy. We got to 30 employees. It was an absolute like we had to move 3 times in just 1 year just to fulfill demands. Obviously now the team is smaller because now it's the return to the means, right, of every cycle. So now we're a team of 13. Um, so repairs is still a big part of the business, and I think it's somewhat a part of hosting, right? It becomes a part of it because if you want to keep your customers happy and well served, you don't want to have them to ship their boards to China or to some service center in the US or whatever, because in our case, we're located in Canada. So you want to be able to, fulfill everything and be a one-stop shop for your customers. So that's essentially what we are and what we've done. So we have the hosting. Hosting, we do it. We have our own facility, but we now also have a network of partner facilities. So, for instance, right now we do have some containers that are not operated by ourselves, but that we do rent in Alberta. And again, our strategy is really, especially with hosting, is really to go with the underserved. And we feel retail customers are really underserved. And I understand why. Definitely, there is more attention to be put on those customers. A lot of the time, retail customers, they're putting their life savings or a part of it, in those machines. So to them, it's really precious. They want like constant updates and everything. But we really have the formula to attend to those customers, I think. And so it's not a problem for us to accept all of them and give them the real good care they need and make sure that their machines, are in the best rates we can get. Can put our hands on. So essentially, we're almost acting as a broker for like retail customers and packing them all together in groups and then renting a container, for instance, in Alberta or locating them in our own facilities if there's a room. One of the struggles we have, obviously, is that Quebec moratorium, if we remember. So it's not allowing us to expand any further in Quebec unless we buy companies that have those grandfather clause, but those don't go for cheap. So if we want to stay affordable for our customers, we do have to look at some other places such as Alberta. And it also allows us to, use wasted energy like stranded gas and even methane mitigation. So that's a whole other part we're looking into and getting more and more involved because I truly believe dual purpose mining is part of the next era of mining. And what I mean by dual purpose is, monetized by more than just mining. So for instance, heat or for instance, methane mitigation. So that's hosting essentially, repairs attached to it. And then there's all the hardware, part of it too. So we do a lot of sales. We do sales like in North America everywhere, but also a lot in Europe. I'm very surprised by that, but we have a lot of customers in Europe. And I think it's mostly to do with two of our leading products. It's to do with the Bitax and MiniBit that we've done, which is essentially an open source miner, consumes between 10 to 15 watts. You can plug it at home and essentially it's mostly used as a lotto miner or as a tinkering tool. But for people that don't have access to mining, such as Europeans, because of those, restrictive rates, they can't like play with an S9 like we can in Canada or US. So for them, I think the Bitax really answers a big way for them to get involved in mining. And also when it's repurposed as eating, like I said. So we're one of the first company, I believe, that came with options for people to go and buy the units, but also have them with already configured and silenced and everything to be able to plug. So for instance, in North America, we have the restriction of most outlets are between 110 and 120 volts. So that's a restriction because most machines are coming for, configured for 220 volts. So we make, we essentially undervolt the machines. We can use Brains OS or Vnish or whatever custom firmware. And then we'll also make the adjustments. So for instance, you need quiet fans to keep the machine silent. So we do like all the, how to say, the benchmarking, and we get the appropriate solutions essentially in the hands of our customers. So those are, I would say, are two big leading products also that we have and that we help pleb miners to get involved in mining. And a part of that, I mean, it's essentially everything that will fill the gaps. So consultation, and even we can find some mines, some facilities that are sell. And as you've mentioned, we do treat retail customers, and they're our main audience, I'd say. But we also serve big mining companies that are publicly traded. So obviously, when the repair, when it makes sense to repair your gear, they're always knocking at the door. So that's essentially Decentral in a nutshell.
And just for people that don't understand, what do you mean when you say pleb mining, Jonathan?
Yeah, yeah. So pleb mining is just a way that to say retail miners. So it's a fun way to say, it's like a self-diminutive where we say we're just plebs. We don't have those big means like those big public companies raising millions in capital. Well, we don't have those means. We're just plebs essentially buying the unit with maybe their life savings or some savings they made to be able to participate in the network.
Yeah, just normal everyday people committed to the wonderful world of Bitcoin. Yeah, but Jonathan, because I suppose Bitcoin mining certainly it's unpredictable. It's difficult to make a profit unless you really know what you're doing, and you have access to hosting or an edge in terms of electricity costs, all that kind of stuff. For the vast majority of plebs, especially if they're injecting a significant portion of their savings, wouldn't they be better off just buying spot Bitcoin? Or, well, I guess what I'm saying is, what are some of the reasons or advantages that normal people would look to get into Bitcoin mining instead of just buying some Bitcoin and stashing it away?
Absolutely, and it's a very good question. This is a question I think everybody should ask themselves before getting into mining. So in most cases, you are absolutely right. There would be it would be better to buy Bitcoin spot than to mine, and so it really depends on how it's done. I think with the dual purpose mining that I've touched on lightly, especially the heat reuse portion of it, I think there's huge, massive opportunities. I look just at S9 right now; they're going for so cheap. Even when you do all those modifications to get it to a heating, device, it's so much superior to resistive heating. It essentially, and obviously, I'm not a financial advisor, but the return over investment is anything in between 1 to 2 winters, and that's even counting that you won't be running that unit during the summertime, right? So really, to me, it's superior in every way to resistive heating, which is essentially those ugly white things we have, at the bottom of our walls, like you can see right now in the video feed.
Are you talking about the space heater editions?
Yeah, the space heater edition. So I think this is like one of the ways pleb miners want to, get involved in mining, because that way they're actually monetizing the Bitcoin mining in 2 ways, right? They're monetizing it through Bitcoin and through the heat. And it's the law of conservation of energy, right? So 1 watt is always going to be equal to 1 watt. So if you have a heater at home right now, and most heaters you have at home that are using electricity are going to be using for each room 800 watts. So if you replace that by a S9 that you undervolt at 800 watts, it's going to generate the exact same amount of heat, because it's the law of conservation of energy. If there's 1 watt or if there's 800 watts, there's always going to be the same heat output. So the output is always the same, but with mining, you also get the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So turning...
Yeah. Just to be clear, listeners, Jonathan is literally talking about instead of having a heater for your home in the winter, you have a Bitcoin miner that also doubles as a heater because it's generating heat through it's an energy intensive mining of attempting to try and find those elusive Bitcoin. But in so doing, it can just transfer that heat into your home. So it does make sense. How noisy are those space heaters?
So the ones we're working on right now, they're going to be anything in between 40 to 50 decibels.
Okay, just tell me how noisy is that? I don't know even how noisy that
Oh,
is.
well, when you're using, maybe when you're using your computer and gaming, it's going
Yep.
to be something similar.
Right. Okay. So it's you could have one in your lounge, no problem, and still be watch some
Absolutely. Yeah.
TV. You're not going to hear it.
Absolutely. Like there's going to be that little white noise, but it,
Yep.
it becomes part of the area.
Yeah, understand. Yeah, fantastic. And so yeah, there's just looking through the Decentral website at the moment, and there's some they even look kind of sexy, right? They you know
Right. Right, and that has to do all credits due to CryptoCloaks on that, and that's why we've partnered with him for that design because I thought it makes it so sexy and it makes it wife compatible. It's wife approved, right? So that's what we want. We
yes.
want Bitcoin miners that we can put in our homes, and that does exactly that.
Yeah, man, I think there'll be see that as a big growth period in the years to come. Well, there's kind of two. Obviously, another huge growth area is just the renewable energy side of Bitcoin mining, methane gas, hydro, all of that stuff. But also the idea that maybe you can bring crypto miners back into the home by solutions like this, kind of hiding them in your home environment in a wife-friendly, noise-friendly way, and utilizing them as heaters, things like that.
Absolutely.
What about what else did I want to talk about? So the current Bitcoin hash rate, it's high. It's as high as it's ever been. It's just gone. It's crazy to see the hash rate has just gone up and up and up really since what you were talking about before, since that China ban
Hmm.
back in
Yeah.
2021. We had a sudden drop, but since then we had a couple of drops, but it's mostly been up, and like really seriously up. Of course, Jonathan, next Bitcoin halving is, what, 4 or 5 months away. So that's going to be quite an interesting time for miners, for miners to stay profitable. We'll need to see a significant appreciation in the Bitcoin price, and it's very possible that might happen. But yeah, how do you kind of plan ahead for the different scenarios that are possible?
Well, to me, hash rate is just going to go up, and that's my expectations. I always plan on hash rate just going up. There's the simple fact that we still keep on having year after year, those massive energy efficiency gains between the generations, which always surprises me because we always think we're so close to the edge, and then we get another 30% energy efficiency increase over the next generation. So that's always impressive. But on top of that, there's also, and I'm coming back to it, the dual purpose mining. I think really we're going to an era where mining is going to be more and more monetized through, other activities. So methane mitigation we've touched on is essentially, all those torches. So, and it's having so many compatibility with other, missions that the public at least have. So, for instance, methane mitigation, you have those oil wells or whatever that are gonna draw most of the oil, but there's gonna be that derivative, for instance, natural gas or maybe methane, and like since it's uncapturable for them, it's so little, but it's still representing a lot when you put it all together. They'll just torch it, and the reason they torch it is actually to help the environment, because if you just release those gas in the atmosphere, they're actually like 20 to 40 times heavier than CO2. So turning it into CO2 is actually beneficial. But when you flare, there's actually a 97% efficiency. So that means that there's about 3% of those gas that don't get actually burned and go in the atmosphere directly. When it goes through a generator, that 3% is also captured. A generator is essentially 99.5% efficiency. So it captures almost every molecules in there, and it turns it into CO2, which is beneficial again in that case, because as a CO2 equivalent gas, methane and natural gas is much heavier. And so it's contributing technically to global warming much more than CO2 is. And so in that case, in order to I would say to reduce the CO2 equivalent gases. It's a really good solution. And why it's a solution, why there's no generators already installed in those sites is there's no way up until today to capture the value from those generators. So you have the generator, but there's nobody to consume that energy. Nobody to consume the energy. The generator doesn't pay for itself. So obviously it doesn't make any economic sense right now. So if you bring the generator and you bring the consumer directly to the generator, such as Bitcoin miners, well, then you can monetize that energy so the generator can pay for itself, and becoming, environmentally friendly also becomes economically friendly. So I think that's the only incentives in how it can work. I'm not a big fan of the state intervening and putting taxes and carbon taxes and stuff like that, like we have in Canada. I'm more about market-oriented solutions like this one. And that's one part of the dual purpose mining. I think the other obvious part is what we've touched on too, is the heat reuse, and it cannot only be done as individual scale. It can be done as a commercial scale too. So for instance, I remember when I was doing IT, I went to a place, it's an airport, essentially a private airport. They had all those, how we call them in English. I'm looking for the word hangar in French. I'm not sure if that would ring a bell. Warehouse, thank you. So
Warehouse, yes.
they have all those warehouse, and obviously here in Canada and Quebec, it's cold most of the year, right? So they have to put all those big heating elements at the top of the warehouse. And so I went and visit and look over me and see those heating elements essentially working. I'm asking them how much, how much kilowatts is that using? So between 5 to 10 each. Say you have 10 warehouse, well, that's 100 kilowatts wasted here. And we keep hearing that narrative where Bitcoin mining is waste and stuff like that. So all of this is just turning in my head, and I'm looking at those heating elements doing nothing but eating. And to me, this is waste. Like there's no economic value for that. There's apart from removing the ice from the airplane wings, which arguably is a big economic benefit. But aside of that, there's no other economic benefit. So to me, it's really like use mining for ETH. So that's a perfect commercial example. And industrial wise, I think Marathon just announced that they're doing, those aquaculture. I don't remember what exactly they'll be farming. It's a fish, obviously, but I don't remember the type. But there's so many uses like this where I think dual purpose mining is the way. And to add on top of all of this, there's also AI that's coming into the picture. It's essentially competing for the same resources, for the same talent. So it's competing, for guys like me that's already, used to operating a hashing center, that's already used, because to me, there's a big distinction between data centers and hash centers. So, there's the information age and there's the computing age. There's a big difference in the needs of the two. And I think we're going through the computing age from the information age. So data center is essentially data that's at rest, that needs to be accessible 24/7, etc. While computing is really more about, performance, always being at 100%, no downtime. So there's a big, maybe it sounds the same, but there's a big difference in how you operate the two.
All right, thank you, Jonathan, for sharing your thoughts there. Some fantastic perspectives. Just as we finish up this part of the podcast, please tell people where they can go to learn all about the different services that you and your team at Decentral offer, and where can they go to learn more?
Absolutely. Well, we're obviously on pretty much every major platforms, so you can come to our website, Decentral, D-Central, CENTRAL.tech, TCH. You can find us on Twitter or X. You can find us on Facebook. We're not very active there, though. You can find us on YouTube. We do have a lot of live streams, so it's always nice when the crowd comes and interact with us. We try to keep it really, really fun in there. We are on Discord. We have a huge community on our Discord channel. You can come and chat, and most people will help you when we don't have time to. So that's really nice. We're essentially on all those major platforms, WhatsApp, Telegram. You can reach out to us too. And obviously, you can always write an email or call us. And also, you can come and the old-fashioned way visit us. We're open Monday to Friday. So if you're in the area, Montreal area, we're open 9 to 5.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. Let's go to a very quick break and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We'll run Jonathan through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. Back in 1 moment.
All done.
You mean the toast?
Something tastier. I've just copied an elite trader on BitGet. 1 click and it's done.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't have to sit here manually spying on the moves of smart money and crypto and copying them. I just have to click once, sit back, and BitGet does the rest.
You are so lazy.
It's about working smarter, not harder. Copy it until you make it.
Hands off, gains up. Start copy trading on BitGet.
All right, we are back, and I'm with Jonathan Bertrand. Jonathan, of course, is the CEO at Decentralizing Technologies, a crypto mining company empowering pleb miners through to industry giants for all things crypto mining. Jonathan, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Just going to run some questions at you, Jonathan. Just want your kind of honest answers, rapid fire style, hot take style. Question 1 for you. Jonathan, where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
I think you can see from Decentral, we're more oriented to Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, but I can see some chains having their use cases, but I'm really concerned about Bitcoin. That's my main focus.
Yep. What would you say is your firmest conviction Bitcoin opinion, Jonathan?
Well, to me, censorship resistance is one of the most important things to preserve in Bitcoin.
I like it. All right. Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So, with that in mind, 10 years and Bitcoin is a long time. Bitcoin mining in 10 years' time, what do you think the mining industry looks like?
I think, my goal is actually to be out of business because my goal is to make hosting essentially obsolete through time.
Explain.
So to explain, my goal is essentially to have all those pleb miners, empowered through products like BitAX, like open source miners, like space heaters, and to eventually make it so unprofitable for hosting facilities, those major big facilities, to essentially to plug in new miners, right? So the goal is to have that dual purpose mining taking over and essentially concentrate into the pleb miners' hands.
Do you think that's, I love that. Do you think that's realistic though, when the pleb miners are up against, industry heavyweights like Marathon and people like that? Will it still be economical for them to be pleb miners at home?
Well, I certainly think so. And the reason I think so is because they're home miners are actually more efficient, more energy efficient than those major farms, right? Because major farms can only compete on the electricity rate. And we know that's something like that. The energy is something that's going to be more and more scarce, clearly, based on the current trends. And so we can only estimate this to go, that expense to go up for the major public miners in the time, while pleb miners are always going to need heat, or at least in the colder climate, areas, they're always going to need, there's always going to be a need for instance, right now for methane mitigation, as long as we keep on taking oil out of the ground. So those dual purpose activities where there's a lot of, for instance, oil wells, there's a lot of private oil wells, right? It's not necessarily plebs, but they're private and they're not like those major massive companies. Obviously there might still be some room for them, but I certainly think it's possible and attainable, because I truly think that right now pleb miners can be more efficient than Marathon.
I love it. What's your favorite Bitcoin miner from Bitcoin mining history?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I certainly have a sweet spot for Bitfarms because it's local. They're, Quebec, a big example of how Quebecers can make a huge success. I think Bitfarms has a very sound business model. I like them a lot, and I like working with them too. And I also have a soft spot for CleanSpark. I think they've made some really great moves.
Awesome. All right, last question for you, Jonathan. What is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show? Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy, I believe. Great answer. Famous book by Douglas Adams. And interestingly enough, Elon Musk's new AI, it's called Grok. The Grok personality is based on, the Hitchhiker's Guide, which is interesting.
I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah, because Elon Musk is a big fan of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So yeah,
very nice.
Hey, this has been excellent. Really enjoyed talking to you today, Jonathan. Just to finish off, again, tell people how they can find you on Twitter or /X, and again, where people should go to learn more about Decentral and maybe pick up a space heater, something like that, so they can, get involved with the pleb mining revolution and, heat up their house at the same time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And everybody can find us on Twitter at Decentral Tech, all together. You can also come to our website, d-central.tech, TCH. We're on most major platforms, YouTube. You can also join our community on Discord. We have a huge community there that's ready to help you out with essentially all your questions.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jonathan. All the best, and bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, there you go. That was Jonathan from Decentral Miners. Yeah, Decentral Technologies, Bitcoin mining company. Yeah, Jonathan was cool. Really enjoyed talking to Jonathan. And I'm fascinated by the Bitcoin mining space heater idea. That just makes sense. And as I say, they do look sexy. You can see them on the Decentral website. I'll put a link to Decentral in the show notes. All right. Well, I think that is the end of another show, folks. So thank you so much for listening. Please do make sure you are subscribed to the Crypto Conversation in whatever podcast app you are using. Give us a nice review on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify. Give us a rating. That would be great. But that is it for today. Thanks, team. This was Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin. See ya.